This video begins Book 8 of the Aeneid. New characters that we meet in this book are Tiberinus, the god of the Tiber River, Evander, king of the Arcadians, his son Pallas, and Vulcan, the god of fire. You may also know Vulcan by his Greek name Hephaestus. Just to give you a bit of a brief summary, Tiberinus makes an appearance to Aeneas and says that sacrifices must be made to Juno and that he must seek alliance with the Arcadians. Tiberinus tells Aeneas also not to worry, that if he seeks this alliance, the fighting will not be any easier, but that he will be able to win in the end. Aeneas prays to the river in thanks. Then he spies a white sow of the prophecy and makes an offering to Juno. He then sails upriver with 2 boats to find King Evander of the Arcadians. At that time, the Trojans come upon the Arcadians in the middle of a ceremony that is in honor of Hercules. Evander then invites Aeneas to spend the night in his home, and Venus, who is worried about the upcoming war, asks Vulcan to make a new shield and a new armor for Aeneas. Vulcan agrees and rises the next day to begin work on his new weapons. Aeneas talks to Evander, and he tells him that it would be wise for him to unite with the Etruscans, who are eagerly seeking to punish Mezentius. And we have mentioned before that Mezentius is a terrible man, but he and the people are ready to get rid of being under his tyranny. The Etruscans have been held back by the prediction that a stranger must be their leader. Seeing as Evander is too old to do that, Pallas is partially Etruscan, so this all falls upon Aeneas. Here is a picture of, and this may be something that you would like to print out or zoom in later, but it's just an artist's rendition of some of the different scenes that appear on Aeneas's shield. Although Evander himself is, at this time, has little to offer Aeneas, he does promise to send his son and 200 horsemen with Aeneas. And suddenly, when that happens, a vision of clashing weapons appear in the sky, and Aeneas recognizes this as a sign of war sent by Venus. He sends a ship back to get Ascanius, and Evander tearfully bids his son goodbye, as well as the other men. Aeneas gets his new armor and his new shield here and is ready for battle. The interesting part is that with all of these symbols that are on Aeneas's shield, he is not fully familiar with all of them. There is a wolf with a human child that has a depiction on it, and that is a symbol of Romulus and Remus, who are the twin sons of Mars, who were raised by a she-wolf. There is another prediction by Jupiter to Venus in Book 1. There is also the rape of the Sabine women. Romans carried the daughters of the neighboring Sabines off to be their wives. And there are also varying episodes from the time of the kings and scenes of the Republican War showing a Rome that punishes lawless violence and reveres and is protected by the gods. The effect of the shield is triumphant, and writing this into the book is a nice way for Virgil to praise the peace that Augustus has established. The shield has many things that it represents. It celebrates the establishment of Rome. It celebrates Augustus and his win at Actium against Cleopatra and Mark Antony, as well as the Romans believing that Augustus, that his wins led to the freedoms and tolerant rule for which Roman was known at the time. Virgil gave added weight to the religious institutions of Rome by showing them that being founded by the mighty Aeneas was a way to cast more importance on them. If you remember back to some of our early talks, that the people of Rome were not very involved in any kind of religious ceremonies or rites. And Augustus, in a way to keep peace and keep this order, wanted to have more of an emphasis put on that. So Virgil incorporated that into his writing. Aeneas rejoices in all of the image, but he does not know exactly what they mean. He must bear the destiny of his descendants on his shoulders in the same way he bore his father in the escape of Troy. The shield is a blatant imitation of the Iliad's lengthy description of the shield of Achilles. Achilles' shield had many scenes of it on it of marriage, festivals, and death, as well as scenes of war. The implication was that these were all of the things that Achilles would miss because of his early death. However, this contrast to this represents Aeneas' shield represents the things that he will encounter as well as what his descendants will encounter because he did not choose to die a glorious death. The shield lent a tragic tone to the Iliad, whereas the Iliad represented everything that was lost. Everything in the Aeneid is pushing towards what is going to be. With all of this, Aeneas is transformed in his way of thinking. By the end of book 7, he was glad that his traveling has ended because now he is on the shores of Latium. This is going to be his future home. However, he is troubled at the thought of the war. Virgil begins to refer to him as Father Aeneas, as he has in the past when his father Anchises died. The readers were glad to hear of the simplicity in the future of Rome that was depicted upon the shield, but this was a slur to the Romans who had become obsessed with wealth and that had contributed to the civil war. So all of this is going in an effort on Virgil's behalf for Augustus to keep that peace, to not be so obsessed with material possessions that will ultimately lead to a war. And this held Augustus as the one who had led them out of that and had established the republic that they were accustomed to at the time.